Welcome to the Cake Therapy Podcast, a slice of joy and healing with your host, Dr. Altricia Foster. This is a heartwarming and uplifting space that celebrates the transformative power of baking therapy. The conversations will be a delightful blend of inspirational stories, expert insights, and practical baking tips. Each episode will take listeners on a journey of self-discovery, emotional healing, and connection through the therapeutic art of baking. There's something here for everyone, so lock in and let's get into it.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Cake Therapy Podcast with me, your host, Dr. Altricia Foster. So today you're up for a treat. You have your slice of joy and healing today is none other than Mr. ronbenisrael himself, owner of Ron Ben Israel Cake. So Mr. Ben Israel is a luminaire in the baking community, of course. Get excited, guys. He's the executive chef. He's an executive chef in New York. He's a master baker in New York. He's also a master host. We see him all the time on the Food Network. According to the New York Times, this gentleman that's in front of you is the Manolo Blahnik of wedding cakes. Imagine that. Manolos are my favorite shoes. So imagine we have the Manolo Blahnik of wedding cakes in the space. I'm excited to welcome one of my favorite cake heroes into the space to give us a slice of joy and healing and some cake therapy. So welcome, Mr. Ben Israel. Thank you for joining us on our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, but my head already is super blown with ego. So be careful. One more compliment and it's going to burst the screen.
The conversation is going to be packed with compliments today because it's who you are, So I'm really excited that you agreed to join us. So we emailed Mr. Ben Israel a couple of days ago to invite him to share his form of cake therapy. And he immediately said yes to us. And we're excited that he's open for that conversation. But as we were delving into his background, Mr. Ben Israel is, as his name states, he is an Israeli-born baker, pastry chef, master chef. And I want to be intentional, with understanding what's taking in Israel and Gaza right now. I wanted to check in with you to see how you're doing and how's your family doing. And, just share with us how you're feeling at this time.
I would like to do that very much. And thanks for having me. But let's set up the rules. If you call me Mr., I'll call you Doctor.
No.
So if I may call you Altricia, please call me Ron.
Okay, Ron.
I also don't use the term lightly because chef means master. So in-house, we call each other by first names. It's only when in public, in big appearance or a conference, but I prefer first names.
Okay, thank you.
We're already going to be great friends.
Thank you.
So I have barely situation. It's a huge topic that has been going on for many, many years. Before I was born, and unfortunately, probably it will go way after me. So I'll just say that my heart goes out to, of course, my family and my siblings and my friends and my colleagues in Israel, but also to everybody in the Middle East. The situation is dire and it's horrible. And I believe that we are controlled by greed and human nature, and what I pray for and I hope is for peace and coexistence and support, because that piece of land has always been trampled upon by kings and nations, and the people who lived on that narrow piece of land, the land of milk and honey, were tossed around from diaspora to diaspora. So I don't have a solution for the situation. Mm-hmm. And I pray for everyone. And of course, I get upset when I feel threatened, but I try to remain human. And the world needs to help us, because if we lose that piece of land, it's really very significant geographically and culturally. And we need to keep it democratic for all sides. Mm-hmm. So it's very heartbreaking to hear everybody argues in this way. Every matters, and killing for killing's sake is awful. And I wish that we all find a solution, but it's again beyond me. So I pray for peace. But of course, I have an identity. My name means son of Israel. Our parents went through the Holocaust and lost the grandparents. So I grew up without grandparents. And my parents came as young people to Israel and met each other and fell in love. So my lineage is really son of this place. I was born there. And even though I live in the United States, I keep my citizenship, of course, and my ties. And it hurts. And it's scary.
Yeah. Thank you.
So then, luckily, we have cake, and I have a business, and I'm very busy right now. It's the fall wedding season, and it helps for me. I mean, some days I don't want to get up and do work, but actually, many nights I can't sleep. So I get up early, 2:00 in the morning, and I bake some bread for my crew and for myself and my friends.
You're doing some bacon cake therapy there to get through the day.
I always said, even before I met you, that cake and bread are therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine where my life would be and career without the outlet of baking and creating. It sustained me throughout my life, even before I became a professional baker.
That's interesting. That's good. So,
like to know how I started?
I'm not there yet.
All right, I'll keep it.
Yeah. So when I started, you had so many shows on the networks, right? You were the host of Cake Genius, several reality TV shows.
Sweet Genius.
Sweet Genius. You were the judge on Cake Wars. And when I started baking, I would go Food Network, to find recipes, solace, just the shows that were around that. And, I started to do my research before we thought about this podcast. And I was reading that where you once said that when most tots your age were making messes in the sandbox, you preferred to observe your mom's culinary magic as she whipped egg whites together, right? To hear about your early life, where did baking come from?
So when I think about myself as a kid, as a child, I was always fascinated by things. I don't want to say mechanical things, but things that worked together. It could have been an airplane kit. It could have been woodworking. And in the kitchen, I was just fascinated how, and that was my job, because we didn't have an electric mixer when I grew up. So my mother would sit me up to distract me with a bowl and a whisk, and I would whip up either egg whites for a meringue or whipping cream to sweet cream. So it was fascinating for me to see how, from a simple ingredient, this mound of white sweetness would transform. And I just love the magic of it. It's still to this day, whipping air into egg whites or cream, or now that I'm more sophisticated, I would use baking powder or yeast. It's still magic. There are spirits there, and we garner them to help us create something magical and tasty.
Yeah. So who are you really? Because we're reading, you're a master baker, you're the host, you were in the military. Share with us your upbringing, what you do. You're a dancer, we've read. So tell us.
So I think that, I needed to be acknowledged. That's what I sort of knew all my life, and it became very apparent during the COVID crisis here, that because we were shut down. We had no bakery, no employees. And I started operating from home. And then the moment I could come back to the kitchen, I started a little cookie business and treats. It became ronbenisrael Treats. And we would take city bikes, which are those bicycles that you rent by the hour, and just deliver all over until the post office was reopened. So what occurred to me is that I really need to be acknowledged. I need to remain valid. And that sense I had since I was a kid. So I wouldn't mind even falling down or making a mistake as long as I got some attention, but not precocious attention. I needed to do something. So I would paint, I would draw. I went to art school. I started doing folk dancing. I baked at my mother's kitchen. I needed to make things. I wasn't good with abstract thinking. I was good with crafts and making things and entertaining people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of my personality. I mean, if I walk in the street here in New York City and I'm talk to people and meet people, that makes me happy.
Right. At what age did you dance? When did you start dancing?
So I can tell you now that I danced until my very late 30s. And I haven't done commercial cakes until I was 40. So I really started late because I had all those careers.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had my life. I went to art school then. The service in the Israeli military is compulsory, so I was drafted for 3 years.
Okay.
And only then I was able to continue dancing and take it from occasional folk dancing to real ballet and modern dance, and eventually join a company. So before you know it, I was time to retire.
Mm-hmm.
Old age, 40, and I needed an income. And
Yeah.
the cakes came in.
Okay. How was that transition from me to dance? How did you make that transition? Do both together or?
Yes and no. Well, first of all, I didn't have a choice with the military. I was drafted like every young person in Israel, men and women. And I was kicking and screaming, but I had to do it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't necessarily enjoying myself. I needed to survive. And for somebody who's more artistic and imaginative, it was hellish because I also am quite self-centered and I didn't like to be told what to do and lose my freedom. So I resisted, but I still served. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you would get a night off every week or other week. And my father had a subscription to the Israeli Philharmonic, and I really appreciated it. So as a soldier in uniform, when you have a night off, you can go to any concert for free.
Yeah.
So I started seeing dance companies and concerts while I was in the army, and I kept the flame going. Also, my librarian would send me books to keep me reading.
Right.
So it wasn't a time that I stopped, but I could not be released.
Yeah, understandably. So you started dancing. Were you as you were dancing?
No. Well, I like to have guests, and in my humble studio that I shared with my partner, we used to have little dinner parties, but we didn't really have chairs or tables. We sat on the floor. In the Arab way, in the Middle East, you sit on pillows and sort of sisal, like a carpet.
Yeah.
So, but we always liked cooking and entertaining, and I always loved cooking and showing off. And I realized very early on, because I love cooking as well, that if I bring the dessert, I steal the show.
Okay.
People can slave on a goat curry for hours and hours to tenderize the meat and grind all the spices and blacken the meat. I whip something up, and you bring it, and they forget about the food that was presented earlier, and they remember the dessert.
Yeah.
So it sort of clicked in my mind, and I was always reading cooking books and entertaining and figuring things out.
Yeah.
But what happened is I did many geographics. I worked in Toronto, Canada. I was an apprentice of a dance company in France. And when money ran out, I started working in bakeries and catering and just many, many odd jobs.
Yeah.
And to delight, I realized I was okay with this. I could manage, I could learn. And I just enjoyed it and strived.
Yeah.
So I could always pay the rent by working in kitchens.
Okay, well that's good. And our curry cooker, so we pressurize that meat. It doesn't take as long to whip up. So
I have 2 pressure cookers, smaller and larger, and I do everything with it. Soups and meat. It's just an amazing tool.
it has helped us Jamaicans to cook our meat and our food. So we're pretty excited for its invention. So I'm really curious to talk a little bit more about your baking journey, because like you, I would say Mr. Famous, okay, when it comes on to baking and the baking industry, and a lot of us look up to you. So I would like to know, how do you manage your daily life with everything else that you have going on in terms of your hosting?
I wish I had an answer, because it doesn't always feel manageable. No, you mentioned Food Network and TV, but really, I remember watching PBS for reruns of old shows with Julia Child.
Oh,
and Julia Child was about bringing French cooking to America. But she was a gifted baker, so I loved her baking shows. And then I started watching Martha Stewart. And you know what happened to me? One day I get a phone call, and the person on the other line says, "Hi, Ron, this is Martha." And I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody was pulling my leg, but it was real Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
She invited me for breakfast, and she served scones that she baked on the air. And she was starting a wedding magazine. And she sort of discovered me as a beginner, and she saw something fresh. And for the next 20 years, I made cakes for the magazines, and I was a guest on her TV show. I learned a lot from Martha Stewart, many things. From her sense of humor, which is sort of dry, but the ability, she really admires people who know what they're doing. So if you would go on her show and are a coffee expert, she would become the ultimate student. And not only she's a great improviser and a great TV personality, I adore her ability to learn. So when I started doing cakes and I realized I don't know enough, I started going to school. There wasn't an official school to enroll in, which is really important, because over the years, I was able to establish with some of my colleagues a program for cake design in an official culinary school. But one could do small courses, some online, which I less believe in, but we offer short courses in our bakery. But find a local bakery, find a local expert, and even volunteer to do an internship, even if possible without pay, just to learn from somebody who knows more.
Yeah, that's good, and that's interesting. That's a good tip for our listeners who are interested in baking or any art, right? Is always find someone who knows more than you, to be their understudy or to learn from them. So you did mention Julia Childs and Martha Stewart. Are they your biggest influences? Who's inspired?
There's more.
Oh, yeah.
So there's two particular ladies that I mentor. For baking, I love her as a person as well, but I admire her as a professional. Rose Levy Birnbaum, who wrote the famous Cake Bible, which was the first really amazing book that I purchased. So the Cake Bible, then there's the Pastry Bible, the Cookie Bible, which I have here, and I have all her books. And the Cake Bible is going to come again. This is the Cookie Bible, which is relatively new. And the Cake Bible is going to come up with a new revised printing and edition, which is very exciting. I think it's the 35th anniversary or so. It's a great book. So I approached Rose Levy Birnbaum and I wrote a letter. And since we both live in New York, she invited me to meet, and we became fast friends and conspirators. So I was very lucky. And I have another mentor for the design, execution of sugar flowers and cake decorating. Her name is Betty Van Nostrand. She's a very young, active person, and she's going to be 95 this December 1st. And she still rules us. She taught thousands of people over the years how to make cakes and how to decorate with sugar dough and so forth. She's really the overall knowledgeable person, and she's still pretty feisty. She teaches privately, no longer in a culinary school. And she is my main influence in the visuals of cakes.
Yeah.
And she still tells me if she doesn't like something. And I met so many people through Betty, because all her career, she traveled and taught and learned. She was the first American chef to win gold in the Culinary Olympics, which were held usually in Europe. Mm-hmm. So in the 80s, not only she was the first American chef to win gold, she was the first woman chef to win gold. Because we were ahead of the European chefs. It was unheard of to have a female chef.
Yeah. Isn't it? No, go ahead.
At least in New York, you see female pastry chefs, but you see more male in the industry.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Exactly. And it's not just in the baking industry. It's like in almost all industries where you're seeing more male dominance than female. And the question remains is why? But we'll have to delve into that like another time, because I mean, we need answers. We need to know exactly why. So
but I could say this, I'm sorry.
No,
observation is the liberation of any minority should really come from within the minority. You can't grant freedom.
Yes.
And we can see it in the history of the United States and many others. We have to rise for it and seize it. I wonder why women don't object to being objectified, all that. Actually, women. We really have always been a women-centric business, and those ladies, me, when I crossed the line. So,
yeah.
And I love to accept it. I am pretty happy here.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And plus, you're in New York. Those women, there are fierce women out there. So that's good. So tell me a little bit of more experience working with Martha Stewart.
So I mentioned that she loves to learn, and to my surprise, I was a little bit shy, and she put me at ease, and she said, just ignore the cameras and just let's do what's necessary. Yeah. And I also learned that if you make a mistake and something doesn't work, you do it again and you make it into a victory. But I did ask her something, because you asked earlier, how do I manage everything? So one day we were kneading the dough and making little flowers, and cameras are around us. And I said to her, Martha, how do you manage everything? Because she's really a super achiever. And she says, we work on the schedule, we set it up, and then I follow one thing after the other. I think that's the way she put it together, explained to me. And it's so true. You so often feel that you can't handle it. It's too much, whether it's dealing with I could imagine the kids and career and social life and rent and disasters like wars and hurricanes and COVID. And you organize the schedule. We only make cakes once we deposit. So actually it's a financial commitment. So we have to do it. Yeah. And I like that. We don't have a bakery that everything is lined up to come and buy it. We have to pre-order by appointment, and then we commit months and months, sometimes years in advance. So once there's a commitment, we figure out how to do it. We follow the schedule.
Yeah. So there's really one thing that I love about your cakes is like when you see them, you know it's yours. Because there's the movement, the signature sugar flowers. Like it's all, when you see cake, we know it's you. So how was it?
Oh, wait. Now I have to comment about your cakes. So following you on Instagram, and I saw that you went to Toronto to my friend, this amazing artist who visited our bakery.
Yeah.
And we went for classes, Lima cakes.
Yes.
And you came up with such amazing and creative and happy cake, especially the cakes that look like blocks of stone.
Yeah.
Covered with bright colors. Amazing. And then you made flowers. You made sugar flowers.
Yes, I did.
So you see, I appreciate it, because we need to take challenges and through them.
Yeah. And like you said, find someone who knows more than you and learn from them. So I took on that challenge as well. So yeah, Lima that experience was really good for me. It really has helped to transform my cakes and my mindset on how I approach cakes. So I was really excited about it. So thank you for that compliment. So I want to know from you, right? How has baking impacted your life? I mentioned that when we see your cake, we know it's your cake. Movement of your sugar flowers. You were in Bride magazine. Modern Bride, Town and Country, Martha Stewart, Wedding, Insta, the New York Times. Life-changing.
It's true. I have to acknowledge how much I miss being in magazines, because to be almost a weekly occurrence with so many creative magazines. And unfortunately, we don't have that many bridal magazines or magazines at all. So we have more online, and everybody could publish through Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah.
But I miss working with creatives and editors. But I forgot what was the question?
Yeah, how is it? No, that's fine. It's how has it, impacted your life? Like we know that you are committed to this art form, right? We've seen you appearing in several magazines. You're featured in TV shows. You're hosting shows. How has it impacted you, especially as it relates to your mental health and you're coping with life's challenges? Right. If you have any challenges.
Of course, we all do. So first of all, I feel that the commitments that I have to make are scary sometimes, but are necessary. You need to schedule things up and you need to commit in order to do it. So, and the difference between an adult and a child is that I still have the childish feelings of how is it going to take? Then nobody's going to like me. I'm not going to do it well, things like that. But you do one cake and then two cakes and then three and then 300, then 3,000. Who knows how many thousands I've made. So there is with repetition and practice, one gets better. We establish systems. Very early on, I had to bring people in. I brought my students to help out the bakery, and they developed and became creative and knowledgeable and reliable. So things grow, and it's always interesting. And I don't, because I have challenges that I need to address, I don't usually sit and worry because, I have things to do.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit difficult because I've been spending sleepless nights. So what I do is I set up a bowl of dough, sleep a few hours, let it rise, get up naturally, punch the dough down, shape it into little loaves or fill it up with a sweet apple or pumpkin filling.
Yeah.
Let it rise, go to sleep. So I don't waste my time.
Right.
I don't like to hang out so much. I like to keep busy. But in terms of mental health, it became very apparent that I need to go to therapy early on.
Okay.
To handle the pressure and to handle the challenges, especially since my parents passed away pretty early for me. So I needed support, and I'm also in a new country without close family. So talk therapy has been really great, but also physical therapy. I have been practicing this system called, so it's not dance anymore because I like the studio atmosphere, but I can't do ballet anymore.
Yeah.
It's called gyrotonic. So there's two systems. One is called gyrotonic with machines. Gyro comes from Greek to rotate, G-Y-R-O. And if you look at my stories, you'll see those. And gyrokinesis, which is also done in a group. And that has been very helpful. So 5 times a week, I go to the studio and practice.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. So it really is any art form or any form of, repetitive movement or good for the soul. So I'm glad that you're feeding your soul outside of the cake studio as well, and maybe featuring some of those non-traditional forms of therapy on Cake Therapy as well. So hope our guests stay tuned to learn, and even to learn more about gyrotonic. So I'm excited about that for you. What is one of your biggest and most valuable lessons that you've learned from your journey?
I think not to speak too fast. Some key things for business that I learned is to say, that's interesting, let me get back to you.
Yeah.
So when a new offer to take, for instance, now we are overbooked, and either you spend some months in the winter with not enough work and I worry about paying the rent and salaries, and then you have the busy seasons, spring and fall, and we are overbooked. So it's very tempting to take more jobs, and sometimes there's pressure from past clients and event planners, and we just and I consult with my employees, and sometimes we accept extra jobs, and sometimes we say, I'm sorry, I'll have to refer you to somebody else.
Right.
But I can't take it. So restraint of pen and tongue. I'm not perfect at it, but not to react immediately, and to say like, I'll get back to you.
Right.
Another form of it is saying, I understand that you would like a different price tier, but unfortunately I can't.
Yeah.
And further on is, my employees deserve to make a living wage. So, because many times a client would be concerned about budgets, but we need to, it's not just me.
Yeah.
And the bigger the business, the more established it is, the more expensive insurances. We encourage our employees, which I think is the only care company that I know of, to save in our simple IRA, which we match 1-to-1. So if an employee puts $1 a week, they get $2, one from us. So even if they're much younger than me. So the commitment is not to respond emotionally, even though sometimes I do. If somebody meets us and comes for a tasting, which is complimentary, and we spend time designing, and then they decide to go somewhere else, we respond as a company, we wishing them the best and assuring them that they would enjoy the results, rather than say, how come you did not book me?
Right.
So a little maturity seeps in, and the feeling that of course I worry sometimes, but I also accept that all this time we survived.
Yeah.
So we are here to stay.
Well, that's great. So these are like some amazing lessons, but not just budding entrepreneurs. They're amazing life lessons too. But and then you teach as well, right? Do you still teach international culinary?
Yes, and during COVID, the International Culinary Center was shut down.
Yeah.
Very sadly, a lot of the intellectual property was passed on to another school in New York City, the only school we have in the city itself, which is called the Institute of Culinary Education. So a lot of the teachers went to move to teach there.
Okay.
And what I've decided is to teach in our own studio bakery, so I don't have to travel. People come to us, and there is an advantage of teaching in our own space, because when we do the wedding cake boot camp, the students for 3 days can move between different stations. And what we tried this year, which was very successful, every one of our employees, chefs and artisans, can relate to the different students. Okay. So they get a little bit with me, a little bit with the creative director, and so forth. So it's just trying something new, and it's been very successful. The challenge is to find the time to do the classes.
Yeah.
But obviously, without students, we'll have no future, because people who are students eventually will either grow up to have their own businesses or come to work here. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, it definitely is very important. I know this might be like a hard one to answer, but let's try it. What's your favorite thing to bake overall? And what is your best kind of student? What types of student do you like teaching?
No, it's a good question. I love to bake cakes or breads that rise with yeast.
Okay.
And the reason is because it's slow. You incorporate live organisms, and there's a magic that happens, and they keep on growing and growing, and I prefer to give them slow rise and shaping. So it's very magical, and of course the whole house smells beautifully. And it's something I love to do when I'm in the house. So we don't sell those. For our cakes, we use buttercream and sponge cakes and so forth.
Right.
But for myself and my friends and my family. Then the ideal student is somebody who's really, really eager to learn and has the need to perform repetitive movement and really get into it. What's not so ideal is a person who calls themselves a chef or an artist. Because once you address yourself in those titles, what are you going to learn? So I feel that I don't address the chef. I mean, other people can call me that.
Yeah.
But really, I'm Ron, and I keep learning, and I keep teaching, and I keep making mistakes. And luckily, they're not fatal. And to be in the process is the best thing. Once you arrive, where do you go from there?
Yeah. So that again is just great advice for the community. But I would love to share with me. You are full of information and knowledge. You've had such lived experiences in the field, but you run a successful business out of New York. What, in your own right, what are your top 2 things or top 2 pieces of advice for young entrepreneurs? You just gave us information, your advice for your students, the type of student that you like to teach. But what are the top 2 pieces of advice for a young entrepreneur?
So pretty easy. When practicing, you look at established styles or trends and try to replicate them. So I guess it's necessary. It's like going to a museum and looking at the old masters and learning to sketch by repeating somebody's work.
Yeah.
But really, the ideal way would be to develop one's own style and persona and sensibilities, even with flavors. So get a great cookbook like the Cake Bible. Get your own copy of a book. Don't just rely on recipes on the internet, unless you go to the Food Network or reliable blogs. But if it's just somebody, don't just take your recipe, get a good book and learn it, and then make your own variations based on understanding the recipes. And try to do the same thing visually. Maybe learn how to make sugar flowers, but don't necessarily copy what the teacher is doing. And then the other, develop your own personality, style, sensibility, so people will recognize the cakes for the creator and not just a copy of a trend.
Yeah.
Make the trends rather than follow the trends.
Follow the trends. That's a good advice.
But also in terms of baking and flavors, let's look at where one comes from. Where's the physical geographic location? So if somebody's from Jamaica or the islands, why not take some of the spices we use in jerk cooking, I started adding a touch of cayenne pepper to my carrot cake many years ago. And just a little cayenne, you don't even taste heat. It just opens up the flavor. Don't be afraid to use salt in sweet preparation. Herbs and spices. You know how we do pumpkin pie with this combination of cinnamon and nutmeg, ginger, allspice, cloves. So why not do a vanilla cake that is a little spicy?
Yeah. So it's the encouragement here is to just be open-minded in your space. Like challenge yourself to reach your cultural flavors and your cultural flavoring without just walking into someone's own recipe and replicating it. So that's great advice for new bakers and stuff. So it was written a few years ago that your art is both reverent and joyful at once. Your dedication is it's both reverent and joyful. And so my question to you is that with each cake, it's like a performance. Is it still a performance with cake that you make? Are you still there? Do you still get that?
Of course, every cake is like opening night. So this past weekend, we had 7 weddings, which is a lot. Yeah. And we worked the whole week on producing the weddings, and they're all boxed and rested overnight in the walk-in refrigerator. And then the cold vans arrived. Even in the winter, we deliver in cold vans for stability. And then I was in charge of distributing them with my crew. And it was so exciting. I don't get to do it every weekend because I take some time off and we split the burden. But it was so joyful to see the families, to see the locations, to see the florist sets up and the event planners and the musical instrument warming up. So I feel very much that I was gearing up to a performance, except that we had few of them. Yeah. And I still get excited.
So in what we're promoting here in the Cake Therapy Foundation is the use of this form, we girls to feel this same energy that they, this art form is a performance to them so that they can find some form of joy and healing in the space as they bake, because you know what you get, you get that sense of peace and tranquility in your space. I get it from baking as well. So I'm trying to teach others how to be able to learn the art and receive the same pleasure that we have. My question, so as we're trying to uplift girls, women, girls, gender non-conforming youth, what is your message to them? If they're thinking they need to find a place of solace, but what would be your message to them about baking as their place of solace?
So dive into the process and don't think too much about the results, because you can't affect the process. You can't affect the results by thinking. You don't want to think about the ready-made cake. Let's start with the ingredients. Read the recipe many times. Line out any. Once there's a certain understanding, line up the ingredients in the order they're written. Follow a procedure. Don't just throw everything into a bowl. Get a scale, because I believe accurate baking needs a scale, and they're not that expensive anymore. For a few dollars, you can get quite accurate. Mm-hmm. So a scale rather than measuring everything in cups, because you need teaspoons and tablespoons for the small ingredients. Electric mixer is great, but if not, just follow the procedure and then you'll get the good results. Now, if the results are not as expected, then we can analyze it and go backwards and see what went wrong. And many times it's because we skipped a part. Mm-hmm. Of course, the recipe has to be from an accredited source.
Yes.
So I have a few recipes published in the Food Network page that can be searched. What happens is with the big networks, the recipes are vetted in their food kitchen, test kitchen. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean, reliable source. And many times a good baking book will be reliable as opposed to just finding somebody's blog, which you don't know. If they measure the ingredients by weight, you have better chances of success.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your slice of joy and healing with us here at the Cake Podcast. I enjoyed having you here. I love learning, and I've learned a lot from you this morning, and I hope that our guests have in turn also learned from you in this space. Thank you for sharing and continue to share your knowledge with us here. And yeah, I'm happy. I was excited about today's conversation with you.
Thank you, Altrisha. Thank you for having me. And thank you for the amazing work you do. It's very inspiring. I would love to learn more. And hopefully we'll get to meet each other in real life and have some cake together.
Yes, that will happen. I bet you. So thank you for coming on. And I wish you a successful fall season. And, go do your thing. You've done it, and we're excited about it, and we love you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cake Therapy Podcast. Your support means the world to us. Let us know what you thought about today's episode in the comment section. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you found the conversation helpful, please share it with a friend. Also, follow Sugar Spoon Desserts on all social media platforms. We invite you to support Cake Therapy and the work we do with our foundation by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, or by visiting the Cake Therapy website and making a donation. All your support will go towards the Cake Therapy Foundation and the work we are doing to help women and girls. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.